Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Darren, Seth, welcome to Outdrive.
Thanks, Cliff. I'm really excited to be here and talk about what we saw recently and share with our viewers what a SHOT Show experience is like.
Same. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. We had a great time. I first want to, on behalf of everybody at the agency, I want to thank you guys for, going above and beyond and leaving your homes and families to head out to Las Vegas and be part of, what SHOT is all about. And, trade shows are an important part of most every industry. Every industry has trade shows, and certainly COVID impacted those. And the SHOT is no exception, and I'll talk about that in a second. But, every industry has trade shows. You don't necessarily always go to them all, but you're certainly aware of them. And Darren, as your role as a business developer for the agency, I know that we ask you to vet shows throughout the year, not only for our agency, but for our clients, our clients to say, well, what do you think about this trade show? And we can vet that show and make a recommendation on whether to go or not. And just as we did this year, we vetted the SHOT Show. And we've been going to the SHOT Show every year since 1994. I think there was one year that I missed because I was sick, but that's a long time. Well, basically 30 years. And, if you're a hunter and a fisherman and an archer, even if you don't work in our industry or in that industry, you may have heard about the SHOT Show because it's the shooting, hunting, and outdoor trade show. And as a consumer, in theory, you're not supposed to be able to get in there. We know there's consumers that go with friends that own gun stores and things like that get in, but it's a trade show, which means it's business to business. And so, the companies that are exhibiting there are talking to other businesses, whether they be dealers or distributors or manufacturers or suppliers. It's a B2B trade show. And so, SHOT's been around, I think, since 1979. I think I read that. And, we go because we have clients there, and we've had clients there for a long time, and we're looking for new ones. But more than that, we are there to, feel the vibe of the industry, to learn what's going on, to look for innovation in products and services and in exhibits and displays. We're there to talk to media people about what's going on and to develop relationships with a whole variety of different kind of people on behalf of our clients and behalf of the agency. So that's why we go. And, I look forward to it every year. It's almost like old home week for me. And I hear people say all the time, this is a really big industry, but it's actually a really small industry. And so, one of the things I really look forward to is reconnecting with people that I have known over the years. It might be a past client. It might be a media person. It might be a professional shooter that we've worked with or come to know with, or maybe even shot with from time to time. So there's all kinds of opportunities for reconnecting. So keeping old friendships and making new ones, I think, is really what it comes down to. So I was excited that both of you got to go this year. I know it was your first year for both of you, and I'm sure that you had certain expectations going into the show. And so I think we're anxious to hear what those were and then how maybe that's changed now that you've been and experienced SHOT for yourself. So, we have on the show Seth Brunkhorst and Darren Grove, both account executives for Callis. And they are both what I would call gun guys and sportsmen and outdoorsmen. And so for me, I always say it's like a kid in a candy store. If you go out there and you start walking down the aisles and looking at all the products and exhibits and displays, and and it's hands-on. You get to pick up that whatever it is and touch it and feel it and aim it. You get to talk to salesmen about it and find out more information. And there's catalogs and literature and swag to pick up. So with that, let's get your guys' input on this. Darren, let's start with you. Talk a little bit about, your objectives for the show and, some of your key takeaways.
Sure, Cliff, thank you very much. And, earlier in the podcast, you said, we want to thank me for taking time away from family and hearth and home. Let's both admit that some destinations are easier to arrive at than others. And anytime I get a chance to go to Las Vegas, and Las Vegas was hopping, the world of concrete was there concurrently. They were there at the same time. Hotels were full, restaurants were full. But to get back to your question, anytime that I like to attend a trade show, people may not realize this, but there's a fair amount of preparation that goes into trade shows. I never want to find myself going to a trade show and just wandering around and saying, why am I here? So luckily for me, I had a great baseline because you have been to so many SHOT shows and you have established relationships with these clients and these companies. And it was obvious as we were walking through to watch people pull you aside and you talking to people. And it's a great thing. But, my objectives for a trade show, to be quite frank about it, are to grow Callis. Now, I am very lucky in this circumstance because I am an outdoorsman and I understand products and I understand how rifles work and I understand how bows work and I understand the reason for people being there. So I got to combine two passions. One is selling and business and marketing, and two are products that I have a genuine interest in. So boy, it was really a fun 2 days and it was a busy 2 days. The SHOT Show on their banner for their website lists it as the 8th largest trade show in America with over 2,600 vendors. So, getting back to preparation, it's not realistic to talk to 2,600 people about 2,600 products. So I will look at company websites before we go. I will look at leaderships. I will look to try to find things that are innovative. And, I'll make a list of 12 or 15 people that I really want to talk to. The show would not be complete if I don't talk to these 12 or 15 people. And then I will make a secondary list of maybe 30 or 40 other vendors and the great thing about trade shows is people are there to showcase their products, right? I've never talked to a grandparent, for instance, who has a picture of a grandparent or a grandchild in their wallet and leaves it there. They want to get it out and show it to you. So I remember one thing I keep in the back of my mind, this show was not really about Cliff, you or Seth or I. It's about the vendors because they're there for a specific purpose, right? They want to grow their sales. And I believe marketing is an integral part of growing sales, right? They go hand in hand. So we had a chance to talk to several vendors that have been established for years. We had a chance to talk to some that were just getting going. So my objectives are really to learn more about their company. What are they doing? And after they tell you about the product, a real common question, at least for me, that's wonderful. Your product sounds great. Now I know about it. How do others know about it, right? What kind of channels or what kind of messages are you using to get your product out? So we had a chance to, talk to an awful lot of folks. And it's important for the listeners who have never been to something like the SHOT Show or at that scope to realize it's a complete industry. When I, first found out I was going to SHOT Show, having never been, shot to me connotates, a rifle shoots, it's shot. It's just firearms. But boy, when we talk about an industry, manufacturers were there, tooling companies were there, clothing companies, selling safaris and trips to, Africa. Site makers were there, hearing protection, eye protection, training aids, publications, law enforcement, background checks, ammunition. The list goes on, but I'm just, bringing up some of these things to give listeners a scope to how big it is and how important this trade show is for people in that industry. I will stop there and maybe we can come back and revisit some other thoughts.
Yeah, great. Well, I think that's a tremendous overview and something that made just kind of popped into my head as you were talking there is that if you've never been to a show like that and you hear about it, and of course this one is in Las Vegas every year, you think, oh, that's just a big party. You're going out there and you're going to have a lot of fun. And certainly when you work in an industry that is driven by passion, this is an industry where people they're working, but it's their passion that they're able to fulfill. It is fun, but at the same time, it's really hard work. It's long hours. You got to be on your game the whole time because you're selling, right? You're on your feet all day. Sometimes you're standing around waiting to talk to people that you may or may not ever really even get a chance to talk to, which is really even more tiring. I think we were all in the 20,000 step range every day, some more than others. I think there was probably a flaw in my iPhone and I didn't get as many as you guys did, but just a technical difficulty. But, it's hard work. And so, again, I appreciate you guys putting in the work and the time to do that. Seth, you kind of came at it from a little different perspective. Your role is more to be client facing and to work with clients to help develop their marketing programs, while Darren is kind of focused on helping to develop those relationships early on. What were some of your thoughts and takeaways from the show?
Yeah, kind of like Darren said, when I got approached about going, nobody had to twist my arm very hard to actually get on that plane and head out there. But actually walking into the SHOT Show, it was for someone that's really never been to a big trade show like that. It was extremely overwhelming, to be honest. There was a lot of there's stuff hanging everywhere. There's huge booths. There's all kinds of names you've heard of. And then you can just walk and walk and walk and see something new around every corner. And you can see a lot of the same stuff too from different companies, which is cool. So the top level, we talked to a lot of really cool people. But then when we got to the bottom level, I say the bottom level, just the second level, it was a completely different dynamic. And it was something that I had a lot of fun with. And the way that the businesses and the salesmen kind of approached you from the smaller booths downstairs versus the larger booths upstairs. It was like I told Darren, and we got actually yelled at a couple times. We were just walking through looking for some people to talk to from our list, and we just have some random guy say, "Hey, who are you? What do you do? What are you looking for?" And that was his way to talk to us. And we talked to a few people that way, and it was really cool.
They're more aggressive. I mean, they're hungry.
Yeah, yeah.
They're, a lot of them are just
Grinding was the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great word because
Yeah.
they're getting things off the ground.
Yeah, they were. There was some really interesting things down there too that you don't see. A lot of the ARs, the knives and stuff that you see upstairs that we kind of hit on, but there was a lot more niche stuff downstairs, kind of like Darren was talking about too. Different types of pistol grips and air guns and thermals, and there was multiple companies that we talked to, ProStar with Skeet and Trap, and they, in my mind, I've shot shotguns. I haven't been into that industry a lot, but it's way deeper than I ever knew. They have way more high schoolers, college. They sell so much to these specific areas that I never knew about. And all of these companies are way bigger than I ever knew, but still they're considered smaller companies in the whole scheme of the entire show. So that was really cool. The thermals was the other one, thermals and air guns. Umarex was one that we talked to. I'm aware of air guns, but that's also a much bigger industry than I ever realized, and it's growing. Multiple people we talked to talked about how much air guns and that shooting sport is becoming a big thing. It's kind of like paintball almost, and people are into it, and it's growing every day. Thermals used to be a big, expensive piece that you put on a gun, heavy. They're a lot smaller now and a lot more affordable, and you can get them into a lot more consumers' hands. We talked to Athlon Optics about that, and they've got a lot of options that were really cool. We got to look through all the guns. We got to look through the thermals, and it was just a really cool experience. Like you said, kid in a candy store on some of that stuff.
So yeah, and I think what you're talking about and what I saw and what I heard was innovation is driving sales. And if you're not innovating, you're probably pretty stagnant. One of the mornings I got invited to participate and sit in on a research presentation from the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And then there were also presenters from National Fish and Wildlife, the Coalition to Restore Hunting and Shooting, Southwick and Associates, and Gearfire. And it was interesting. What I heard was not shocking, but certainly the big overarching takeaway was the opportunity is with innovation, the way to set yourself apart, the way to attract attention, the way to attract buyers to you. Right now, inventories are high throughout the industry, which means if you're a consumer, you ought to be able to find the goods and services that you're looking for right now. They talked about how ammunition is performing better on the average than all the other categories They talked about storytelling and how important and big it is in this industry. And we're seeing that across the board. Every industry, every client we work for, storytelling is a way that you can be authentic and position yourself as the company you are and tell people about it. Consumers are valuing value right now. And, they want to know what a company's values are, what they stand for, what they mean, and how that fits into their own persona. And, I think you mentioned it earlier, Darren, the new consumer in this industry is different. It's not the traditional outdoorsman. Those people are still there. Certainly they're getting older, and this new customer is young. They're getting their information in different ways. Many of them are female, some are other races, and a lot more of them are living in urban areas than out in the country where we are. And it's just sort of the change that we're seeing, the evolution of the industry. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is driven by people wanting to protect themselves. It's a crazy world we're living in today. And unfortunately, that's a byproduct of that situation. Another thing that I got the opportunity to participate in, which was really pretty cool, was a governor's forum. And basically, NSSF sponsored a forum, and they had 6 or 7 governors from states around the country come and talk about their stance on our industry. And it was interesting. And of course, they were all subtly recruiting companies to move to their state, right? They all have pluses and minuses. But, to hear governors from the states of Nevada, Arkansas, Georgia, Montana, Wyoming, and Nebraska talk about how they support our lifestyle, they support the shooting sports. It's an industry friendly state. Of course, they're preaching to the choir. These are all people that want to hear that message. But I think the message was loud and clear. They want to do business with this industry. And I think that was very positive. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to sit in on that as well. But I think coming out of all that, I'm going to go back to innovation. And innovation is what's driving sales and interest in the industry. And I know that both of you guys saw some innovative products. So, Darren, is there one or two that really stand out to you?
Yeah, Cliff, thank you for that. Yeah, the one product that really stood out to me, and earlier you talked about, Seth, you talked about passion. And one of the great things about trade shows, it was you get to talk a lot of times to the designer of a product or the owner of a company, right? So they have a great deal of passion and they want people to know about it. But we talked to Michael Marino from Olympus Arms, and this gentleman was a retired Army man. And he said it's taken him about 10 years and $2 million, but he has designed the rifle he wished he would have had back when he was serving our country. And by that, he meant easy to clean, accurate, and in this case, recoilless. So, based out of Montana, they have found a way to make a rifle that shoots accurately, that is almost recoilless, and the law of physics says one action begets another. So of course rifles and shotguns have always been, I mean, the recoil or the felt recoil is part of the deal. And to take that away, the one unseemly part about shooting is the loud noise and the recoil. And if you can take that away, I thought, boy, how pleasing would that be for a consumer to be able to go hunting or go to a range or do something without the felt recoil of a rifle. To me, that's a very big deal, right? We talk about pain points in the market, and not that recoil is always painful, but it can be unpleasant. And he completely took that away. And I thought that was very, very innovative, right? And just on the other side of that, he was telling, as it turns out, all three about it. And just, I always want to backtrack just a touch, but we had talked about, Cliff, you had talked about storytelling just a few minutes ago. And that got my mind thinking about education, and how important it is to educate a consumer about the product. So in his case, that would be very good to educate. We take away recoil, but getting back to the general scope of shot, there are a lot of companies that sell the same thing. The booth that I saw, or the booth that most frequently that I remember, are those that were selling cutlery or knives. And for a consumer that wants to get a knife or whatever they're going to use a knife for, right? They all look the same. They have a blade and a handle. But of course, there's some distinct differences. There might be innovations in metallurgy that makes one stronger than the other. and thus a higher price. So I think it's important for people that are selling in an industry that has a lot of lookalikes to be able to separate yourself on your website, or to clearly be able to storytell or define benefits of your product, whether that's on social media, whether that's on your website, or more importantly, based on what we have heard, that more people are going to retail stores now to buy something that 5 years ago they didn't think they need, to educate the salespeople in the stores so they can describe the difference from one product to another, to lead consumers hopefully to your product. And I know the question was on innovation, and the innovation, of course, is driving the market. And Olympus Arms is the one that stuck out to me. But I think innovation also, or creativity perhaps, on how you're communicating your message to your customers also would be important.
Yeah, I agree with all that. That's some good points. Seth, how about you? Was there maybe one or two products that really stood out to you from an innovation point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a company called Black Steel, and it actually kind of ties in a little bit with what Darren had on recoil, because they have a grip that you can put onto a pistol. It's ambidextrous. You can put it on either side, and you can actually place your off thumb on that, and it helps with recoil. And I'd never seen anything like that in my life. And I held multiple guns that they had there, and it was amazing how much better it felt. And obviously I didn't get to shoot anything, but I can just imagine. They talked about how much accuracy improves for shooters, and just tons of different things from just this one little piece on the side of the gun. Conceal and carry, it works right with that. It's retractive. It goes in and out of your holster. A pretty cool piece there for just a very small piece that someone added to a gun. And the other one, it kind of goes back to the optics. I was super impressed with all the thermals that we saw, but there was another thing that I saw that it's not necessarily new, but putting in rangefinders and thermals into just a basic set of binoculars. There was multiple companies that had that. Athlon had that. I know I mentioned them earlier, and just being able to kind of get it all in one product, which seems, easy enough to do, but I feel like I'm fairly in tune with the industry, and I haven't really seen much like that. So maybe it's just a newer thing to get an all-in-one piece there. But I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I agree. I saw those as well. Yeah, lots to see, lots to do. Really had a great time. I think, for our listeners who maybe, have a trade show coming up ahead, they're thinking about going to one, my advice for them is, and Darren, you said it well, prepare. Make sure that you have objectives in mind. Make sure you know what you're going to do, when things open, what time you're going to do things, and then execute. Work that plan and see it through. And sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes you got to go back and see somebody 3 or 4 times. Sometimes you have to compromise on discussions to be able to work in as many as you want to, but execute. And then when you get back from the show, sit down, debrief, and then follow up on that. And then, above all, have fun, because you're out of the office, you're with others in the industry in which you work and operate and do business. And, it all comes down to the people. And, every industry has great people, and it's an opportunity to get to know more of the people that you share common goals and values with. So those are sort of my takeaways and advice for anybody that's thinking about going on a show. So, guys, any parting words before we move on? Darren?
Yeah, I'll go first. And Cliff, keeping on your theme of trade shows, one huge advantage for trade shows, when you're working with companies, data is important, analytics are important. What I would say equally important is hearing feedback from people that live and breathe and work in this industry every day, right? And you can spot trends. You talked about how consumers are shifting. We heard that from several people. Data will tell you that, but there's something very powerful about talking to a sales manager, a marketing manager, or an owner of a company, and they can talk about the successes they've had, perhaps the trials or challenges they've had, because that's the real world first party feedback. I find that to be extremely powerful, as we create messaging and storytelling for customers, to hear it from the front line, what is happening every day. So that's kind of an added bonus for me as it relates to trade shows.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment. And, it's interesting because as a marketing agency and as marketing experts, we're problem solvers, and many times just talking to people, they'll tell you what their challenges are and what their opportunities are. And then as marketers, it's our job to see if we can help them in some way take advantage of an opportunity, optimize an opportunity, or solve a problem that they're having through marketing efforts. Seth, any closing remarks from you?
Yeah, I had a blast. One thing I did forget to mention earlier, I remember walking through when we were downstairs looking at some of the smaller booths, and Cliff, you had noted how cool it was that you remember seeing some clients that were there that are now upstairs, and through the years how you've seen those companies grow. So that's kind of just what I looked forward to in the future, and hopefully myself being able to see some of those companies that I saw downstairs, maybe talk to, get up into a bigger and better, brighter booth upstairs.
I'm sure you're going to see that in the years to come. Hey, fellas, I appreciate you being with us on the podcast today. Great conversation. Hope there's some golden nuggets in there for our listeners. And folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Darren Grove and Seth Brunkhorst, account executives at Callis. Come back again next week, and I'll take you back down the roads of rural America, where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on Outdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to ecallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, Outthink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.